Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 9 o'clock on Tuesday, September 13th, and so I will call our committee of the whole meeting to order. First up we have is to adopt the agenda, so I'll look for a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Wood-Roberts and Councillor Donaldson. Be resolved that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting held on September 13th, 2022 be approved as presented. All in favor? Okay, so that carries. I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Yes, Councillor Clark. Microphone, don't forget.
Thank you. Yes, I have a, I guess, deemed interest in number 8A. It's the bylaw 2144 license of occupation agreement on Wonderland Road. And that one is as a backlot resident close to the subject property. I have a deemed interest in the property being fairly and equitably available for public access to the waterfront. Okay, so that declaration has been made and you will not participate in that discussion, and that's been filed with the clerk. Thank you. Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat, not a good way to start the meeting. Next, I'll look for an adoption of minutes from the committee of the whole from the August 9th meeting. Councillor Clark and Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the August 9th, 2022 committee of the whole minutes be approved as circulated. All in favor? Okay, so that carries. First up, we have a delegation. So we'll just wait to get them on screen. We've got Scott Oval from our Director of Economic Development and Tourism from the County of Haliburton. Kind of excited to see this come forward. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Your Worship and members of committee and council.
You've got a presentation. Do you want to walk us through that first?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just share my screen here quickly.
Great.
So what I have here for you today is a brief update on what we've been up to as an economic development and tourism team. Moving forward, both myself and Tracy would like to be, presenting probably to the township councils at least twice a year, giving you an idea of what our work plan looks like for a given year. And then following up roughly this time or a little bit later in the fall, just letting you know status of projects and where we've been at. I think it will be beneficial in opening the lines of communication. It allows council committee to see what our plans are and then provide input as well as if there's any items that are pressing at the township level that we can loop into our project or work plans in a given year. It allows us to do that as well. So I started last year roughly in just early November 2021. So both myself starting in November and then Tracy Bertrand, our manager of tourism, starting in January of 2022. Our first priority really was to begin developing relationships with the business community and a lot of our local organizations. So that's been one of our top priorities this year. I'm not going to walk you through this whole table. I'm going to, just in respect of people's time, I'll just kind of speak to some of the higher level points. So that's really been our number one priority this year, is getting out, communicating with the business community, letting them know that there's support at the county level for what they're doing, and trying to address any of the issues that we have. Early on, that was through Zoom. It's been great to see since the spring and over the summer, we've been able to meet one-on-one or in small groups with individuals to really get a feel for what's going on in the business community. We did work with the Ontario Highlands Tourism Organization in the fall, in the early winter, to do a social media marketing workshop. So we offered 4 of those. We did those in partnership with OTO as well as the Chamber of Commerce and HCBC. Moving forward this fall, that's actually something that all 3 organizations are going to partner on and look at launching another workshop series. We're just identifying topics right now at this time, whether that's through best practices for hiring, workforce attraction, or financial management. We're going to work through that. We're just in the process of looking at launching our economic development specific webpage. So we do have a great tourism webpage on myhaliburtonhighlands.ca. However, we don't really have a large economic development presence. So we're just building that out just to launch it early on. It'd be kind of a soft launch, I'd like to say. And then moving into next year, we'd be looking at kind of building that out in a more robust fashion and really looking at how we can basically act as a one-stop shop when it comes to resources for economic development for our business community, so they know where to go. And that's also very important in sharing where people can go with getting to other stakeholders and vice versa, so people aren't confused about where they can get information. It's very easy. Both myself and Tracy launched an economic development and tourism newsletter in February. So that goes out to, I think, roughly over about 200 people. Tracy sends one out every Tuesday. And then as we move through the fall, we're going to get a little bit more specific and look at focusing on a few more items that are more economic development oriented. One of the projects we did collaboratively with the townships, actually, we met with the CIOs in February, I think it was. It seems like kind of a while ago, but our tourism department worked with the visitor information centers and provided some visitor experience training. And that was really just going over all the assets that are within the county of Haliburton as a whole. So regardless of where an individual was stopping, if they had requests regarding information about any given point in the county, we tried to work with the staff there to make sure that that was readily available. And they understood that although they want to push people through the given community that they represent, it's also very important that when a visitor is within the county, they look at it as the county of Haliburton. And if they want to get from point A to point B, where that information is available, how they can get there. A topic we'll talk about a little bit later today is the county whitefinding strategy that was brought up to us. Kind of that process started about April. We did host a tourism and business summit in May, so that was really well attended. We had roughly 80 businesses attend that event. It's something that we're going to do annually. This year, we brought in the Workforce Development Board. One of the things that Tracy and I became aware of when we started early on, there's a lot of great resources. Unfortunately, some of them are geographically located in kind of the Peterborough-Lindsay area. So it's important for us to get some of these services up in our region, trying to find a way for them to have a better presence, explain what they do. And then the second portion of the day was about product development and collaboration amongst businesses. Followed the day closed off with just kind of some networking and a cocktail hour. Next year, we haven't landed on what the topic will be, but we're going to try and keep it topical every year and focus on bringing something forward that is of value and getting our business community in one room. We've identified that, early spring seems to work the best for people prior to kind of the busy season. Of, I think, particular importance is we're just about to start the second phase of our economic development strategy. So we've selected a vendor. We're just finishing off kind of doing the environmental scan and the current reality and kind of gathering all the relevant information. And the consultants really right now are just in the process of finalizing a survey that will be launching probably within the next week, as well as doing small breakout sessions. So we took a bit of a different approach to this project this year where we're going to do focus groups with individual business sectors. So whether that's the construction sector, agriculture, retail, and sit down with them and try to get more relevant information from them in smaller groups and try to have more productive conversations, as well as we're going to do about 25 one-on-one interviews. Tracy would poke me if I didn't do a quick plug for Hike Haliburton, which is taking place September 22nd to 25th. And then as part of the economic development strategy, we're going to actually include our annual business survey in that process. Moving forward in 2023, that'll be a standalone project. We'll do that annually to allow us to compare data, information, see what programs we've got in place that are working and aren't working. And then just lastly, some other just highlights that we have with you. So we have been working with our neighbors to the south with the Kawartha Lakes Economic Development Team, just figuring out ways that we can better partner. In particular, that office oversees the Small Business Resource Center. So we're just working with Rebecca there and trying to figure out a way that we can get the staff there to have a more enhanced presence in Haliburton County and find ways that they can support our entrepreneurs a little bit better. Both same with their accelerator space. We're just trying to determine whether initially we start that kind of through a virtual service, and then ultimately, as we build momentum, perhaps we can have a day a week or 2 days a week where those services are actually dedicated, based out of one of the towns within the county. And then moving forward, just, obviously talked about kind of our continued partnerships with HCDC and the Chamber of Commerce. That's been very fruitful. And then primarily our focus next year will be on the implementation of the actual economic development strategy, as well as the continued implementation of the destination management plan. So the second aspect of this morning's presentation is to discuss the community wayfinding plan. So on April 28th, we are invited to the Cultural Resource Committee with DISARD and to discuss the concept of what a wayfinding strategy could look like across the county. Subsequently, a request was made to County Council that we explore this in a little bit more detail. Both myself and Tracy conducted a report that just kind of outlined what a wayfinding program would look like, what a scope of work would look like, how we think we could complete that. And then from there, we were directed to engage the township councils to determine whether they had any level of interest in participating in something like this. To this point, we presented to Minden, and then, it's a little tricky over the summer with holidays. So then on Thursday, I'm presenting to Algonquin Highlands and then subsequently Highlands East in October. And I've just outlined again on that June 8th staff report, it was really just outlining what a project plan could look like. And I won't walk you right through that. We'll get in a little bit more detail in the next slide. So really when it comes down to the purpose of wayfinding, it's just really creating a clear sequence of directional signage between points of interest. That's really the simplest way to put it. It does provide some strategies as well as to how both the county and then subsequently the townships could look at building out signage bylaws or implementing those or installing signage moving forward. And it really just provides some clear, consistent branding as people move throughout the county. And what we'd be looking at really from a project management standpoint would be, we feel that the county staff can lead the development of the strategy. We'd be looking for township staff in the first phase to assist us with identifying assets and points of interest that needed to be included. We do identify that moving forward, probably we'll need some assistance from a third party just when it comes down to the branding, the designs of the signs, the sizing, and then particularly where they have to go in given locations. That can be a little tricky when you're dealing with a couple layers of government, as well as the MTO, as well as accessibility guidelines. We have to be cognizant of that. And it's a very specialized skill set that's required to undertake that process. So right now we're just in the first phase of our work plan. So that's just engagement, working with our partners to define a potential project scope. If we do find that there is an appetite from the township councils to support a collaborative approach to this, we would subsequently report back to county council with the goal of identifying the participation and then having some money allocated in the 2023 budget for their consideration to move forward. In phase two, obviously, we feel that there's some components there that obviously can be completed by municipal staff, and that's where we'll be looking for a motion from the committee today, just providing a little bit of direction there. If we were to move forward, that we could have some assistance, and it's really just about identifying the community assets, helping us with best practices, and then just doing an audit of what currently exists. And then subsequently, obviously, as identified before, we think that we need to probably retain a third party just to identify specific locations, sign types and messaging, and then the branding. And then as part of that as well, that we recognize that implementing a project of this scope, you're not going to do it probably over the course of a year. So as part of the implementation process, we asked that whatever firm we were working with would really build out what a plan would look like, whether it was done over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Give us some timelines, some phases, and some budget estimates, so everyone's really clear about what the roles and responsibilities are once we get to the implementation phase. And we've talked about what the outcomes are. I'm not going to walk you through everything here. Really, it's about identifying what key municipal assets are of points of interest to people, helping them get there easier. making it really clear that the wording and the writing on the signage is very easy to read, easy to identify. It's consistent throughout the county, and we feel that there's a couple ways we can go about that, as well as obviously working within the standards of the AODA and accessibility, and then really focusing both on vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle traffic. So with that, I'll finish off and stop sharing my screen. And really what we'd be looking for today is simply just a motion that you support to participate in the development of a countywide community wayfinding strategy, and that we'd have some assistance from the staff. Really just in that first phase. Anything beyond that, obviously, we would be required to come back to this group and discuss it in more detail.
Okay, thanks so much, Scott. And seeing as this has actually been talked about for quite some time, and because Dysart has a very active cultural resource committee meeting, that was sort of a goal quite a long time ago, and then it was talked about at the county, but nothing really got off and got going. We had just a straight tourism department and public works department where had been talking about it, but again, nothing really got going. And so again, it got talked about at our cultural resource committee meeting, of which we brought it to this council to pass that recommendation to the county. So I would think that there would be support at this table, but it really is important when you go into a community and you see that specific branding. And Scott, I don't think I ever did send you the pictures. I was over on Lake Huron earlier at the beginning of the summer, late May and early June, and in a couple of beautiful small towns over on that part of our Ontario. And the branding was really obvious, really consistent. In Kincardine, they actually have a little tartan, which I thought, oh, that might look nice, the Haliburton, because there is a Haliburton tartan. And it's specifically for, arena to the right, the beach straight, the park to the left. That's what it is. But it really is helpful for visitors. So Councillor Clark, I did see your hand up, and Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Scott, very much support what you're trying to do with regard to the wayfinding. Your earlier part of the presentation, you're talking about trying to support the business community and taking things forward. And I guess I saw a lot of what you're looking at is down through Kawartha Lakes and that, which it's interesting that the stuff they've got down there. But my knowledge of the local business, local community and support groups is the issues they're dealing with down there are not the same as what the businesses in Haliburton County are. And I was just wondering if you've given thought to perhaps a small working group or some type of an advisory group for your economic development team at county that would incorporate things like the local builders association, the farmers association, the farmers market, perhaps representatives from business groups in Minden and in Haliburton. There's challenges here that I think need to be understood. And although you can only do so much with the advocacy, it's good that it would be appropriate that at both the township and the county level, we know what the challenges are for the businesses and what's getting in the way of going forward, what we can help them with, what we can't. So any thought there as to advisory groups, or have you got that in place already? Or
yeah, and I think just for a bit of a clarification there, when talking about the services and kind of the Kawartha Lakes, Peterborough area, those are agencies that kind of Haliburton County falls under that jurisdiction. So one of our focuses really, and maybe just to clarify, is getting them up here so that they better understand the challenges that are facing the businesses here, and then the services that they provide, we can start trying to tailor to support our business community. We just look at them, that their additional resources are already funded by the province. So, I think there's an obligation that they have to, have a more enhanced presence here. And then to the second part of your question, the way we've approached the strategy by doing kind of smaller breakout sessions to gather information from, if, we say construction, so it'd be the Home Builders Association, probably be the primary vehicle we would use to reach out. Subsequently, the goal is that we, establish some relationships with those groups build some trust. And then as we go through the implementation of the plan, we can then reach out subsequently to those individuals that we already met with and start, again, picking their brains on particular projects that we're going to implement. We can utilize them to be champions of some of the things we're trying to do, as well as sounding boards to figure out what's working and what's not working. So that obviously will be a huge component. We haven't chatted about, a specific working group or an advisory committee at the county. I think that would obviously be one of the conversations probably the new council would have if they want to go that direction. And I can't remember specifically if there was an economic development kind of advisory group or working group prior to my time here. I know there was something related to tourism, so whether that gets rekindled, it potentially could be a logical direction, particularly when we're looking at implementing a plan that our primary focus is going to be actionable and tactic oriented, so that it doesn't sit on a desk. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Actually, there was a tourism committee, but that got disbanded almost a couple of years ago, I believe. And then it just became part of when we changed to committee of the whole. So whenever that was. And so all of county council is the tourism committee, I suppose, without members of the public. But, the difference that the county made in branching out and having economic development and tourism tied together, which is very common, was a big step forward. The county had not had economic development and said, okay, that'll be the local municipalities. Local municipalities of our size can't do much. And so each local municipality was trying to have a little economic development committee and really not getting very far. So this is a really great step, the way the county has restructured these services. And I know Scott and Tracy are available to those groups all the time. Like I'll get an email about a business and I say, reach out to here, and they do, or they already have. So so it's great that we have those contacts. Councillor Smith, you were waiting.
Thank you. And a couple of questions, one with regard to economic development activities and one with regard to wayfinding, I might. And through you, Madam Mayor, to Scott. You talked about a lot of activities, Scott, in the area of economic development. I was curious as to how you measure the degree of success, return on investment, if you like, that you achieve as a result of the investment of tax dollars into your department and its activities.
Thank you, through your worship. That's actually one of the deliverables in our economic development strategy, is actually develop a set of KPIs that we can report on back to county council on trying to measure how the funds have been used. And economic development can kind of be a nebulous topic sometimes. So that is one of the priorities, just given when we start, both myself and Tracy started kind of, the budget was almost already set. It was really, this year was just about presenting a work plan to county council and using that as a measurement tool to say, we completed this, or this is ongoing. Moving forward, I know just in conversations with our CAO, that was one of the priorities he wanted to see come out of the economic development strategy, was a consistent set of KPIs. I can't define what those are going to be because they're, kind of different for every region. It would be challenging for us to kind of track. I shouldn't say challenging. It's challenging to try to determine the impact that, economic development staff have on, a new investment opportunity in the county, as an example. If a new business started, it's not impossible. It's just something that we have to establish, and that'll be a focus moving forward next year.
Okay, great. That's I think it's important, and it's great that the CAO is demanding that, because it's often easy for people to say, I'm really busy, I got a lot of things on the go, but unless you're producing results, busy isn't that good. With respect to the wayfinding, I was curious. The examples that you gave, Madam Mayor, were parking in the arena and parks and so forth, and those are all important things to direct people to. But Scott, do you expect there'll be an opportunity for commercial enterprises to participate in the signage to direct people to Halliburton Forest, for example, or other destinations that, tourists come here for?
In previous roles, when I participated in a similar strategy, we did include private enterprise. That can be a very touchy subject and can be a slippery slope. I think one of the things we may look at is within the actual strategy is just having a process in place or a policy or bylaw, whatever one of those is the most practical, that if a private sector enterprise wants to participate or have a sign that they're identified on, here's the criteria as to how it gets evaluated and a decision is made. I think that's probably, it would be a conversation that we would have going through the development of the plan. Some regions have shied right away from it. Other areas have done kind of a pay to play. So if you want to participate, you actually have to pay for the installation of the sign or be added to it. Other regions, if they have a really kind of regionally or provincially recognized that like location, they just include it because it's important to the process. I don't want to say that we're going to make a decision one way or another right now on what that would look like. I think we just have to work through that as we build out the strategy.
Councillor Smith.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Then I think that's important. That it's great that you focus on a strategy, but personally, I think people come here, not just for attractions that the municipalities own and operate, but there's a lot of private sector owned activities that frankly are core to reasons people to visit Halliburton County. And if you use the provincial highways and those blue signs that you see on the highways where the businesses pay to be there, that's I think a great model, and that we should be looking at the same kind of philosophy. We're not going to promote your business for nothing, but if you're prepared to pay the cost of signage, it would be useful. And to the mayor's comments about what they've done in Kincardine, it would be, I think, very effective if there's some consistency in terms of how those things are positioned, relative to our parks and arenas and so forth. So thank you.
Thank you. That was actually brought up, and as Scott just said, it is a bit of a slippery slope because part of the benefit of wayfinding signs is the simplicity and the clarity and the size of the font that it has to be to the speed limit of the road and the proximity of where someone's going to see that. So, you don't want a whole lot of cluttered signs. But you mentioned about the blue Todd signs, they doubled in price a few years ago. So a lot of people, that's put them out of being able to afford those signs, and nobody knows why they all of a sudden went, like not 5% increase, 100% increase. So that they are not available for all businesses to use, but it will be something that's part of the strategy. And I think as the county goes down this road, those will be the options. You might want to start with just municipal assets and then grow. Deputy Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Scott. Who knew that putting a sign up that the arena is to the right could get so complicated? So we have another consultant. One question I did have was the uniqueness. Now, Dysart has an Explorer Lakes program. Do you think the goal will be to try and maintain some of that uniqueness in the signage? And Highlands East, when you get there, they've already completed an extensive sign program. I'm just wondering just how you're going to incorporate local or lower tier priorities or programs into an overall county signage program. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be part of kind of, the initial information grab. And I've already kind of had preliminary conversations with Highlands East. Just kind of my experience thus far, I think I get the feel that we want some uniform design, but I think each township does want to have the ability to provide kind of their own unique touch on some finishing components of that. So and that's not uncommon. I think in Huron, it was kind of the regional tourism organization that looked after the signage throughout kind of the entire their catchment area, and then they just provided the opportunity for each individual community to kind of put a little touch on there for some differentiation. And again, that's totally feasible, and you would just kind of work through that during the design phase. And, just make sure everybody's on board. Obviously, dealing with two layers of government, it's a little bit more, it just requires more consultation, particularly at the local level and then at the council
Okay, we
table as
actually
well.
have some construction happening, some repair work happening right above my head. So I'm going to keep my microphone off as much as possible. At this point, the resolution is fairly broad. It just simply says that council support and participate in the development of the countywide community wayfinding strategy. So really, I will look for a mover and seconder to see if we support. There's lots of questions, lots of unknowns, but there'll be lots of opportunity for consultation as this goes forward and over time. Go ahead, Councillor Wood Roberts.
A question. The newsletter that you spoke of, I wonder, would it be at all possible for that to be forwarded to members of council as well, just so we can keep up to date?
Through your worship, yeah, not a problem. Right now, we don't. We just send it via email, and it just goes directly to our stakeholders. And we're just on the back end of our website, just making some tweaks on with our IT department. So probably within the next 2 weeks, you'll actually see a notice going out on our social media feeds that you can sign up for it. And that'll be the opportunity to do that. And that's when we're going to try to shift it more from a tourism specific to kind of a broader economic development newsletter. So if you follow our social media channels, probably over the next 2 weeks, you'll see that out there.
Yes. And by the way, thank you for mentioning Hike Halliburton. Tomorrow we have a committee of the whole at County Council, and there's a report that you'll be speaking to. It looks like most of the hikes are full, and certainly the one I'm volunteering on is full. So I'm quite excited about that because that was my idea to do a one-way hike on the rail trail and with a shuttle service. So that was really exciting to see that full. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this resolution? Councillor Clark and Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole recommends that council support and participate in the development of a county-wide community wayfinding strategy. All in favor? And Councillor McKechnie's on screen today. Councillor McKechnie, you in favor? Okay, there we go. Carried. Excellent. Okay, thanks so much, Scott.
Thank
See
you,
you
Worship,
tomorrow.
and members of the committee.
So next up, we have our fire report, and we're just going to take a minute because we're trying to ask the person doing repair and maintenance work to hold off. So I'm going to keep my mic, but you can't hear it right now. So
Dan's currently unavailable, so we can talk about the report.
there we go. Okay, so Dan's not going to be zooming in, so his report is here for the month of August, and it sort of looks like it's down from last year. I believe, I recall. Any questions that we can flow through Mallory to Dan? No. Okay. Mover seconder then. Councillor Clark and Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole acknowledges receipt of the fire department report for August 2022. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Next, we have John Watson going to be joining us with a report from the Carton Council of Canada. And a grant that we received. Oops.
Good morning, everyone. So this report is regards to the Carton Council of Canada. They issued in the spring a request for expressions of interest related to improving the rate of carton recovery in the province. And cartons in this instance refers to aseptic cartons, usually used for juice, milk, soy and grain milk, soup and broth, and then refrigerated gable top cartons, usually used for milk, juice, egg substitute. And in Dysart, these cartons are accepted in recycling for containers. The municipality of Dysart applied to the Carton Council's REOI, requesting $10,750 to implement a public awareness project that would take place in spring 2023 under the campaign theme, Recycling is Easy. The Carton Council approved our application, and we were actually the first Ontario municipality to be announced as a recipient of this funding. So this project will take place in spring 2023. Part of it will include the distribution of 3,000 reusable recycling bags to make collecting recycling at homes much more easier, print advertisements, radio advertisements, and social media to promote the proper recycling of cartons, and also an interactive digital waste sorting game that will be added to our website. I just have a sample of what the bag would be potentially like. So it'd be something people could keep in their homes. It actually would have a divider inside of it, so you could keep your papers separate from your containers to make it easy to transport your recycling to our waste disposal sites. So we're very excited to be part of this project and to implement it in the springtime.
Well, yeah, congratulations. I mean, I guess to even be aware of all these things, we're very lucky to have you, John, that you're on top of all those things to even know to apply for a grant like this. And it's interesting. One of the comments that you made is that people don't have a method to get it there. So I guess I remember when Dysart was selling the blue boxes and the green boxes. Now you can buy things like that in Home Hardwares and Canadian Tires and Walmarts and that kind of stores. You can buy your own containers, but I like this bag idea, especially, it's just convenient. And it's also, as you just held it up and displayed it, it's got the information right on there.
Correct,
So
yeah.
if you forget what's like, where do I put the plastic cap? It's okay to keep it on, right?
Yeah,
right?
keep it on.
Yeah. I know, we're always trying to do the right thing. There you go. Yeah, yeah. What if I said it wrong? Anyway, questions to John, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, just echo the mayor, John. Congratulations. That's great work what you've done. When we all are very aware of your role or your interest in public education around waste management and the impact that's got on our future environment going forward. And as Mayor Roberts has alluded, the caps on a bottle it's very much a cultural thing. You go to a place like Newfoundland, they'll you leave a cap on a bottle, they'll hand it back to you. So there's no caps on bottles. They got to be off before they'll accept it. So you've got different communities you're dealing with and you've got to educate. I guess my question to you is you're mentioning about the containers. Should they be separated now at this point? Should we be putting them into a separate bag when we put them in the landfill, or is that going to not come in until next year?
So Dysart has what's called a two-stream recycling system, with containers being your cans, bottles, and your cartons, like your milk carton or juice carton. Those are accepted in one location at the landfill sites, and then your papers and cardboard would go into a separate bin. This system likely will remain in place even as we move into the new blue box regulation. So we're kind of setting up a really good scenario for the future of recycling in Dysart. So I think we're in a good position here.
Okay, that's great. Councillor Smith was next with the question.
Yeah, thank you. And again, John, good for you on this application and receipt of the grant. Your statement in your report, your kind of theme here, recycling is easy. Recycling would be a lot easier if we didn't have multiple streams. So in Toronto, all recyclables go in a single container, and people don't need to remember whether a paper milk carton goes in the containers section or it goes in the paper section. It all goes in the same place. Is there any chance that we're going to get to that same sort of, because eventually this recycling picked up in Toronto gets sorted at a processing center into the streams, because the buyers of recycling don't buy plastic and milk cartons at the same time. And so I'm curious, what would it take for us to get to that same world of making recycling truly easy?
The short answer is the producers that are responsible for the Blue Box program starting in 2024 prefer a two-stream system. They may potentially force those single-stream municipalities to move to a two-stream system. Single stream results in more contamination, and a two-stream system that Dysart currently has in place is actually considered better for recycling. So again, even though it's maybe a bit of a challenge for our residents, it is a preferred system for collecting blue box materials, and it is the system that the producers are moving towards across the province as we move into the new blue box regulation.
Okay, so then when we move everybody to a two-stream, will it be the same two-stream? Because back in the days when Toronto had a two-stream service, the milk cartons used to go in the paper recycling as opposed to in the containers recycling. So if we're going to have a two stream, I mean, I think the big problem with recycling is people don't know where to put it because, we changed the rules, or there are different rules in different communities. And we used to even have different rules within the 4 jurisdictions of Haliburton County. So I really think, we need to focus on a kind of a universal approach so that people know what to do and, just make it really what you said. Recycling is easy.
Yes. So in the new blue box regulation that starts in 2023 and Dysart transitions to in 2024 and is completed by 2026, the goal is for the entire province to be standardized in the list of acceptable blue box materials. Some municipalities may still remain single stream, just the cost of, for example, in Toronto, to give everyone a second bin for their homes may be too costly for the producers to absorb. But the preference is two-stream system with a standardized list of acceptable materials across the province. And cartons have been identified as being a container material, which is what Dysart already has in place. So again, we're kind of setting ourselves up for success in the new program as that new regulation comes into effect.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, John. So I do have a resolution to receive the report. Very good. Councillor Wood Roberts and seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole received this report for information about Dysart's successful application to the Carton Council of Canada's request for expressions of interest. All in favor? Carried. They'll be easier to distribute than the food cyclers.
Yeah.
They're later. There's still a lot of bags, 3,000 bags. Okay, thank you, John, for that. And next we'll move into Parks, Rec and Events. And I'm not sure if it's just Andrew Mueller joining us today or if Andrew's coming in. I'm not sure if Andrew's coming in. Yeah, he is able to. I'm sure if he was called away. Okay, so Andrea, you're up first with the report of the Welcome Center.
Sorry, figured it better to see me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So surprisingly, the month of August had almost the same amount of visitors as the month of July, only shy by about 100. Again, people from all over Canada, some of the United States, and then England and Austria were some highlights. The farmers market continues to draw a lot of people to town. August was much busier at the farmers market than July. Peak attendance was 2,156 people on August 9th, which is pretty substantial. Quite often on Fridays and Saturdays, people will come into the Welcome Center saying, "Where's the farmers market?" They're misled by the listing that's on Google, because it shows that the Google listing shows that it's Haliburton, but it doesn't list each of the locations. And so they're always wondering. So staff have become quite familiar with all the other locations and giving people directions to those. But a lot of people are really hoping to hit the Haliburton market on the Tuesdays. So that's something that we've noticed this year. I didn't have a chance to look back in council minutes for the numbers for when there was when the Caboose staff reported at the end of the year. I haven't had a chance to do that yet because I know there was a question at the last Committee of the Whole, how it compares to the Caboose numbers. I do hope to get around to that this month, but I have to do some digging for those. So that's about it with the Welcome Center. The Rotary Bikes, aside from yesterday, we've seen some really good use of the bikes. People have been using them, riding up and down the trails. They seem quite happy to have them. A lot of visitors were using them. Unfortunately, yesterday there was a crew that used them for the wrong uses, I would say.
Yeah, I wasn't going to speak to that. It's so disheartening, but that'll be in the news. We won't talk about it today. It's not on our agenda. But so questions about the Welcome Center, Deputy Mayor Kennedy, and then Councillor Smith.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. And it's encouraging to see how much the Welcome Center is adding to the value of the park. Question is, and I've had a couple of people bring it forward to me, is what's the criteria and how many washrooms are open during the day? So people have been to the farmers market and there's tons of people there and there's only 2 washrooms open. So I'm not sure if there is a criteria or just how that's judged.
Yeah, there is. So we always have 3 open during the day. if staff notice that there's a lineup forming and it's a continuous, like if it's just for a few minutes, they're not worried. But if there's a continual lineup, they open up additional washrooms so that, you know, it's okay if there's 1 or 2 people waiting, but if you're getting to 3, 4 people in a line, then more washrooms are opened up. People still are confused, even though the signs say open today, closed today. A lot of people will come in and say, why is the washroom locked? It's like, it's unlocked, but if it's locked right now, it means it's in use and stuff. And they just don't seem to, there's been less of those questions because we put up the closed today signs on the ones that are closed, but people still get confused by that. They think, or they see that it looks like it's locked, even though it's not locked and it's open. They haven't tried the handle. So yeah.
Okay.
How
How did you, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'll have to do create another one that maybe you should look in your budget that we go and buy some of these occupied or unoccupied levers that you see in a lot of public washrooms so that you don't have to shake, rattle, and roll the door.
I asked about that, but something to do with the accessible washrooms and the way the button works, that handle has to stay the way it is. It's deceiving. Like I don't know, because I had asked about that last year if we could have that lever, but I don't. That part doesn't lock the door. It's and there's deadbolts too, and they don't lock the door. We can look into it further though again.
It really is a matter of people reading the signs. And I like that the staff can open washrooms, extra washrooms if needed. And how did they work throughout the summer? Sorry, Councillor Smith, you were next. I'll hold my question. Councillor Smith. Well, how did they work throughout the summer for events? Because that was one of the things that we were also trying to achieve, is that, larger events didn't need the stream of porta potties, because now they have access to paying for washrooms, which they were paying for anyway. But, in the middle of July or middle of August on a hot sunny day, they're very unpleasant to use. People don't like using outhouses. They prefer washrooms. So how did they work with events and that?
So we didn't have any negative comments. The event organizers seemed happy. Lori Jones, for instance, with the Arts and Crafts Festival, was really pleased to have the washrooms. She did still have a couple porta potties, but that's for the overnight use for the vendors that have to stay on site to keep an eye on their wares. But otherwise, for the public, and people keep coming in and complimenting the staff on how clean the washrooms are and how they really appreciate having them. So I haven't myself seen any negative or heard any negative comments or had any sent to me. Same with, like, we have the you can submit a complaint. I haven't seen any of those come through my email.
Oh, that's excellent. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Great to have the counts of visitors that came to the Welcome Center, and you also tell us how many come to the market, but at the time we're putting the budget together back in the winter, a big component of the increase in terms of overall costs for 2022 versus 2021 was the opening of the visitor center and the washrooms and so forth. I wondered if it might be possible to, as this report has kind of become a monthly tradition now, to add to it a sense of the costs, because it's not just staff time, but there's, supplies, and I saw you bought some tables that have been purchased and installed, various repairs and so forth, so that council gets a full picture and has a chance to understand, because costs vary month to month based on staffing and so forth. So to me, it would be, I think, helpful to get a sense of that, and then everyone can understand the costs of this facility and its benefit to the community. So there's a complete picture. Thank you.
I'm going to sort of throw that at Barbara. I know. Good morning, Barbara. Sorry to throw you this question, because it might be actually something that's not so easy to get numbers. Like, how do we say the park staff spent 30 minutes on the Welcome Center? And okay, so it looks like Tamara's going to try to take that question.
I was going to say, it's basically through the budget process. We lay out when the staffing periods are needed, based on what events, and based on the experience of when everybody's needed. So it's basically laid out at that point in terms of what's anticipated to be the expenditures based on the seasons.
But I think there is revenue from the park use agreements of people that do have to pay for the bathrooms as well. But then Councillor Smith was referring to things like supplies. I don't know how you could draw those out separately, or the park staff cleaning time. Anyway, Barbara's ready to chime in.
Yes, good morning. So technically, council does receive the cost of operating the Welcome Center through the revenue and expenditure report that's published on a quarterly basis.
Okay. You know,
Well, to say technically, that's all revenue and expenditures are in that report on a quarterly basis, but they're not really broken out to the degree that helps us understand how much goes here versus how much goes there.
and I don't know receiving anything on there's very few things that receive on a monthly basis that you're going to make decisions on. Obviously, July, there was some revenue and there's going to be far more expense than November. So November, there's probably going to be zero revenue. I don't think there's any events happening. So I think what are you looking, I'm not sure what you're looking for to staff. So I'll ask that back to you, Councillor Smith.
I just happen to think that some granularity in terms of those costs that go into the annual budget, would be instructive. If you're running a restaurant, as some will know, you look at your revenue by a period of time during the day versus your costs, and you make adjustments, based on that. So if your lunch times are really busy, you're increasing your staffing or you're cutting back on your staffing, but you need to understand that. And we're not running a business, but we are spending a lot of money. And to get a better insight in terms of how much we spend on this facility month to month, because, August is going to be a lot different than September.
Okay, I don't know if staff have any clear direction on how they're able to get the granularity that Councillor Smith is requesting, but perhaps. Go ahead, Andrea.
I don't know if I'm able to get that much granularity because I don't order the supplies. That's done through park staff and goes to to the finance team. I can give a breakdown of how many staff or how many staff hours are used. But the staffing hours hasn't changed. It's been consistent from budget time. But I know, for instance, just anecdotally, we had to increase the amount of toilet paper that was purchased in this summer, because obviously last summer was quieter and we didn't go through as many supplies. Whereas this year we were scrambling, even though staff had ordered a good amount, we ended up using more of it. And it's not like somebody can walk away with a roll of toilet paper. They're locked in a toilet paper dispenser. So we definitely used more this summer. I anticipate that will slow down again now as we move into fall. It's less use, but then it picks up again when the winter is busy. So those are things though that I don't have an actual breakdown of, because I don't.
Yeah,
it's
Barbara
did. Order.
That's okay. Barbara had her hand up, and then
I was going to say, even to what Andrea's point there about the staff hours. So even to add to this report, how many hours of staff time were consumed by the visitor center during the month of August would be a step in the right direction. Because right now there's just nothing.
Well, it is still, just within its first year. So we are trying to keep statistics there, and there are details. Barbara, did you want to add to that? And Councillor McKechnie?
Yes. So these types of details are shared during the budget process, the annual budget process. Technically the staffing and supplies and so forth. So as far as on a month-to-month basis, it's kind of difficult to manage that. It's like anything, you have fixed and variable costs will essentially fluctuate based on traffic. And so I'm not sure where, this type of information that council is requesting, what benefit that would have. Right now, we can track the number of visitors coming through the visitor center, but as far as some of the operational costs, that there is established through the annual budget process.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Yeah, this is September. We only have one more council meeting. I think it should be part of a future council meetings budget process, and they'll have a full year of it. However, half of it was still during some different lockdowns last winter. So it is like anything new, start up, but I don't see the benefit of a month-to-month financial report. Councillor McKechnie, and then let's move on.
That's what I'd like to say. Let's move on.
Okay.
Staff hours are the open hours. This is a wonderful service that we provided between us and the Rotary Club. The community, all our visitors had nothing but great things to say. Why are we sitting here talking for 10 or 15 minutes about some rolls of toilet paper? Do we not have bigger things to do?
Councillor McKechnie, would you like to move that you received the report?
Yes, I'd like to move that, please.
Okay, very good. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole receives the August Welcome Center report as information. All in favor? Okay, carried. Next, we have the regular or detailed Parks and Rec update. I don't know, Andrew, did you want to add anything in there? It's pages long, but is there anything highlights that you want to?
Well, the highlight, which you guys know about now, is roof leak above the council chambers, and we're going to have it repaired as soon as possible.
Well, we'll try to be out of here in about an hour, and then you can start the whatever jackhammering. I don't know. We were trying to just figure out how old this development or this addition was, and I don't remember what year it was, but it's well over 20 years old. Tamara, would you know? 2004. Lori
I don't
knows
for sure.
Lori knows 2004 because she was here. So
yeah.
So almost 20 years. So.
I got here in 2006, and I know it was already done. So I guess it's good it's being repaired in September and not in December. Okay, so any questions on this report, Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Deputy Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you. Andrew, we'd awarded the contract last month regarding the outdoor rinks in Harcourt and West Guildford. You've mentioned on the report here. No indication of timing, though. Will those be open and operational for December the 1st of this year?
Yes, as long as the supply lines and supply chains they are the way that they are. Yes, they'll be completed this fall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah, and thanks. I like your report, Andy. It's well structured and gives us lots of information in point form. I seem to be a magnet for boat launch complaints this summer. And as I just got into a fairly heated one on Elephant Lake. Is there any thought to moving forward with trying to enhance our boat launches as far as some capital funding as part of the annual budget process? The complaint on Elephant Lake specifically is that there's been a tree down for a while, and so there's only parking for one truck and trailer. And the second person is really finding it difficult to access. And that's almost a common problem with most of our boat launches, not only in Dysart, but elsewhere, but they're very narrow and limited access. So just, I know we provide $10,000 in the budget. That's for 28 boat launches. It's not even $500 each. So we get a half a load of gravel. And I just think at this time that we should maybe start to look at the worst ones first and start to take even one on a year would be nice after, or two a year. Within 10 years, you might have improvements, but just a recommendation on that more and more people are accessing our lakes, and it'd be nice to have a little better facilities for them.
Yeah, we have been discussing that, and it'd be nice to do 2 a year, because if you start with 1 a year, it's going to take us, almost 30 years to complete it. So yeah, 2 a year would be good baseline to start with.
That's a great point. And I think not how you prioritize them is not necessarily worst first, would be most used. Not to say that the Elephant Lake boat launch isn't important, maybe, so I think you take both those factors into consideration. So that's a really good point. I just wanted to add a couple of things. I do have some friends that are very active tennis players, and we do know that the resurfacing in the tennis courts and pickleball court now in Head Lake Park or the Rotary Beach side is a temporary fix. It is not for the long term, but boy, is it ever nice. So thank you for all of that and all the work done. And there was something else I was going to mention, but it's gone in and out. Oh, just a note on the playground equipment. Andrea, did you mention it later? There's a meeting today at 5 o'clock with the fundraising committee, of which I've signed up to be a part of here at Council Hall Chambers. And so it'll be our first meeting of the Head Lake Park fundraising committee for that playground equipment. Just wanted to bring that in. Anything else? Any other questions for Andrew on this excellent report? It's a really good way to keep track of stuff. Oh, I do want to say part of in the Glebe Park, we are extremely lucky to have some very dedicated Glebe Park committee people. And so the ski club garage, the foundation has been poured. The walls are not up yet, but so that's well underway. When the walls, I don't think will go up. I think the prep work and the site prep was the most takes most time. As well, the actual ski trails had to be rerouted, and they were done like that by some committee members. And so I want to thank those members. Mike Darlington being one, and I'm not sure who else did the work, but I know, Andrew, you've probably gone on site and seen it, and they went a smidge over budget, but that'll be covered by DICER because that's part of our obligation back to the college. So that's really exciting to see that ski trails have already been rerouted, and the ski club garage will be completed in, I believe the completion date was December. So that's pretty exciting to see. Okay, need a mover and seconder to receive this report. Deputy Mayor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that the Parks and Recreation update for July. Oh, that's not right. It's for August. It says July 26th on the resolution. So what's the date? August, just August? Mallory?
I think August was intended. Yeah. So we can.
So I'll just put August with no,
Yeah.
just August and take out the date. Okay. Be received as information. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, and last we have some summer programs and events in review.
It was nice. We actually got back to some regular activity this year. A big success was the youth soccer with 136 children registered. That was made possible through a partnership with a soccer organizer, Kathy Judson, and she volunteered as the soccer coordinator to help out to make sure just with the communication with the families and everything involved. And then we had Sam Gillett, who came every week to help set up the fields, which is a huge help because it takes quite a bit of time prior to soccer to get everything and all the little fields set up and the nets and everything out. So it's great. We had 19 volunteer coaches and others who stepped in when they weren't available because of vacation or whatever to help out. So it was a really successful program. People are looking forward to it next year. The women's soccer has been going strong, and we're actually going to add another a mini program at the end of this. It ends this Sunday, and there's going to be another 4-week session after that by the request. The women have been asking for more. It's something we can do. The school board using their fields, so it works out well for that. We're looking at some adjustments to the soccer program next year, possibly doing a clinic or some skills in the month of June. So that way there's something for kids to do a little bit earlier. And then running the program in July and August. It would be nice to have more field space or fields that are in great condition. We had to deal with a lot of goose stuff at the end of the summer, which wasn't pleasant. And, dealing with young children, it's like, please make sure you're washing your hands, be careful, that sort of thing. The park was really busy this year, or busier than it has been. So we had, as you can see from the list, there were quite a few groups that returned or offered activities. So like some of the regular ones were Rotary Music in the Park. There was the OEYC ran a mums group almost every week in the park. The Lions Club did their stories in the park. The farmers market we had some summer camps make use of the space, the Time Travelers cruise nights, the Halliburton outboard powerboat races, and so forth. So we had quite a bit going on. This weekend coming up, the Abbey Retreat Center is running a program at the band shell, and then there's going to be Color Fest on October 1st. So there's a good amount happening and still going on. Andrea, you had mentioned the playground fundraising committee meeting. It's at the arena in the auditorium tonight, because I think you had mentioned council chambers, so it's in the auditorium at the arena.
Thank you. I'll show up to the right place then.
And then there's a good number of people too that have signed up to be a part of that committee. Some can't make it tonight, but I will be sending them minutes after tomorrow, hopefully. And then there's an attachment. There's somebody who sent a letter with regards to the boat races for council. So I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read that or how you want to address that.
Yes, they should have. It's in the package. So I'm sure everyone read it, and Councillor Clark wants to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's something that we've talked about before, Andrea, and it's I guess there's a need, I guess, or a recommendation perhaps from our council that there's a need for some guidelines around some of the activities that happen in the park. You know, we all like to see it come in and it's very beneficial for the community, but the park is also in proximity to where people live. And we had a lot of residents that, it was just totally outrageous, the amount of noise and the fact that they had loudspeakers going and announcing all this stuff, that they should not have to live like that. So I think what I would suggest as maybe for consideration is that we put a set of guidelines around, those kind of restrictions. If something's going to be within our community, within our residential area, there's got to be certain parameters as to what's acceptable for how they operate and what's not acceptable. Okay, if that sounds reasonable.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I think that Councillor Clark's on an important point there in terms of respect for the neighbors or anybody that lives nearby the facility. I'd raise it from the point of view of powerboat races are, old-fashioned, if you like, and that we'd be better off to look at a more active activities such as kayak races, canoe racing, stand-up paddle boards. There's a lot of things that don't involve internal combustion engines and burning fuels, creating air pollution and so forth. And, our community would be better served through that kind of event and show some leadership in terms of the importance of addressing climate change challenges, for example.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, specifically when it's on municipal property, shows that we're endorsing that. And I thought you might bring that up because at our last climate change committee, we talked about that in terms of, how we live in an area where, ATVs and snowmobiles and boats, but are prevalent, and it's part of our sort of culture here. But in terms of climate change, it sort of goes against all that. So I really just, the noise was one thing. I do live in town, but as well, the confusion always at the town dock parking lot, which is our major parking lot, is also confusing. The access to our welcome center to the side where Rails End Gallery, there's really only now 2 or 3 parking spaces that aren't handicap on that side. And people don't really know enough to go all the way around. So the whole parking issue, the 2 days, it's Saturday and Sunday, there was parking on the roadside from the town docks all the way to County Road 1. We don't have a passing lane. If emergency vehicles need to go through there, there is nowhere for those 2 lanes of traffic to pull over for an emergency vehicle to get through. And our charging station is not available on a weekend. So I do think that this is usually, the old adage was, once council approved an event, they could sort of book for next year. I think in this case, and I know the event organizers do a great job. I did go down there. I said hello to some people, but I think in this case, this one should be reviewed by council before it's approved for next year, and let a future council sort of go through that. Councillor McKechnie, do you want to speak to that as well?
Yeah, I just can't believe that somebody is saying that those boat races would affect our climate change. This, to me, is way over the top. Number two, there was definitely some noise. Yeah. So does this mean that when I drive through town and there's something in the park that I don't like because it's noisy, it's bugging me, that I can come to council and complain? Everything that's in the park can affect somebody. I mean, there was definitely some noise. I thought they were very respectful in regard to the hours. They ran from around 10 till 3 or 4. Maybe they could tone down the loudspeakers a bit, like Larry was saying. I can see that. But I heard a lot of positives on it. There's always going to be negatives, but my main point here is, if you want to complain, can you just stop something? So it's something that I guess the next council definitely will have to look at. Maybe we'll have to shut everything down in the park.
No, there's nothing that's noisy. I live on.
Well, maybe people don't like the music in the park.
You can't hear that all over the town. So it's different than the scream of that boat. Believe me, I sat on my back deck and I also went and watched them, but I can relate to how noisy it is because where I live. So I do think that that'll have to be discussed in future before they're just automatically given the same weekend. But we do have a resolution, which is to receive the summer program. Any other questions on the events and summer programming, Councillor Smith?
Not another question, just the motion just to receive the report. To your recommendation that this particular event come back to council again before it is considered for 2023 and beyond. Do we need a different motion to make sure that it does come back to council as opposed to being automatically approved because it was part of our heritage?
We could add that to Mallory and further that the vote, Tamara.
I was going to say, I've already added it as direction to Andrea to follow up after the meeting to bring it back through council.
Does it need to be in the resolution?
It could also be reflected in the minutes.
Well, if it's reflected in the minutes, are you satisfied with that, Councillor Smith, or do you want it reflected in the resolution?
Well, as long as it's designated in the minutes, and there's a requirement for this to come back. I don't want to have it automatically occur again in 2023 because somebody says we had it in 2022 and
Okay, so it's in the minutes, and mover and a seconder then, please. Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor Smith. So be it resolved that the Committee of the Whole receives the summer programs and events report as information, and further that the Committee of the Whole receives the letter of concern from Sean Penny Legion regarding the boat races on Head Lake. All in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, thank you to both of you. And next we'll move into building and bylaw. Bring in Carl and Robert. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Okay, first up we have is just the regular building permit activity report. Carl?
Yeah, so we did issue Gardens of Haliburton their second phase, which is a 34 unit addition to Gardens of Haliburton. You'll notice on the monthly building permit fee revenue, the blips that these bigger projects bring in. If you look at the highest blip, which was 2019, the yellow line in October, that was Garden's first phase, accompanied by a couple of other larger projects. But it really brings in the permit fees, as well as many other factors. I mean, anytime you get a large project, there's definitely a large blip and additional work as well on the building department. Average daily inspections, they continue to rise. So we are still struggling with that. And hopefully for next year, we will be ready for that.
Okay, any questions on the building permit report? Yep, a thumbs up. Okay, mover seconder. Councillor Smith, seconded by Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Be resolved that the Committee of the Whole received the August 2022 building permit activity report as information. All in favor? Okay, so that's carried. And next we have is the bylaw update. Robert, did you want to speak to that?
Oh, yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just a very straightforward report again. I will note that the medical center, we've been having some issues with the gate again. I've arranged some time for the technician for the exit gate to come up and just do a service on the gates and see if we can resolve this. I've also had Parking Box, who's our manufacturer, and we bought the system from to look at a couple things as well. So hopefully they'll get back to me in a day or so, and we'll be able to hopefully get these all resolved. Other than that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, the dreaded gate at the medical center. So we did talk about that doing, going back to a pay and display system, that there is no gate. You just go to a machine, you get your ticket outside and put it in your car and then go in the building, and there's no gate. So that's something that I think in the future you might be looking at. But there's quite a bit here in your report in terms of from the notice of motion from Councillor Wood Roberts talking about parking enforcement in general. Did you want to speak to any of that, or do you want to open it up to the floor for questions from councillors? Mallory?
I think that's the next report.
I think I have pulled the wrong report.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, I forget what I'm doing sometimes. So yeah, I did. I slid that one over because I already knew the other one. Okay, any questions on the bylaw update? Sorry, I'm all excited about parking. Councillor Smith?
Not a question as much. I just want to highlight the bylaw complaints that are outstanding. You know, in the zoning area in particular, we seem to have an ever increasing backlog. There are now 27 zoning complaints that are open. There were 8 new ones received in August and just 2 resolved. And if we're only able to resolve a couple per month, you know, the backlog of 27, even if we don't get any new complaints, is going to last a long, long time. And so, you know, with that in mind, again, Robert, I'm going to ask, is there anything that council could be doing to help get these things resolved sooner?
I don't have an answer for you on that one. Zoning complaints take longer. I do have a couple that I'm working as fastly as diligent. I can't even speak today.
Diligent.
That's it. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I can. I do have some that will be proceeding with litigation because of no voluntary compliance. So that's where these are coming from. I just heard back from our lawyer for the docks out in Grace Lake, and hopefully we'll be able to proceed with that and have them remove it soon.
This is not unique to Dysart. This is happening. I don't know. Mallory, did you want to speak to that?
This question for Robert, are quite a few of these, I assume, are triggered by the very frequent planning applications we have as well. Is that correct?
There's probably about 10 to 11 that are internal.
Yeah.
Come from
So
our
that's-
planning department or the building department.
That's
So
the nature of the beast then when your municipality grows and when people start building cottages and so on and we're rezoning. Council often catches things like that. So I'm just that just for context for anyone watching, that's when we have a planning application and we direct enforcement out of it. That's why this goes up by quite a bit as well.
Yeah, Carl, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it is something that we're going to explore for next budget season, is the staffing for bylaw enforcement. We're having several issues with building enforcement issues as well. And one of my proposals will be to have a supervisor of building supervisor of bylaw enforcement, whose main objective would be to follow up on building and zoning issues only, and then the other bylaw officer would focus on all the other bylaw issues. That's one of the proposals that's going to come forth, just because the building department's having a really hard time keeping up with building enforcement issues as well.
I think Mallory's point is very important to remember, is that every time we see these planning applications, which we're seeing we know our planning department is swamped, and we see them, and we talk about, in, you know, either it's an encroachment or there's too many structures and it says that it needs to be brought into compliance or removed, like that then gets passed to bylaw to ensure that that they have done what they were supposed to do. So I really think that that's a very, very important point to take. And as I started to say, this is not unique to Dysart. This is happening across the county. So any further questions, comments? Okay, sorry, I jumped ahead when you mentioned about parking and I had the wrong thing open. Okay, so motion to receive. Councillor Clark, Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole receives the bylaw update report for August 22nd or 2022 as information. All in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, next is the parking.
All right, so before getting into this one, I'd like to apologize to the councillors that provided the motions as well as additional information. I went back and watched the actual council meeting where they actually gave the direction afterwards, and I got it a little bit wrong. So basically, it wasn't asking for alternatives to parking enforcement. It was basically getting rid of paid parking. So the report actually provides the information that would be relevant to getting rid of paid parking. With regards to the revenue that it brings in annually. Can the municipality live without that? That's up to council to determine. Are we just going to put that offset to the tax rate instead? So that's information that council can review to determine. Now, we haven't spoken with the BIA what their plans are or what their thoughts are on getting rid of paid parking. I think we were keeping paid parking because the BIA wanted it to basically not have people parking downtown all day, to have a recirculation so people could go in, shop at their stores, those types of things. So we did have a consolidated parking bylaw made up. So this is basically all of the amendments that have been created over the years, put into one bylaw as a consolidated bylaw. If council wants a new parking bylaw, that's something that's going to take quite a bit longer to prepare with any directions that council wants to give us. So if we're going to get rid of paid parking, that's going to be a big part of big changes to the parking bylaw. Anyway, any questions or comments with regards to what's been provided?
Okay, and I do see your hand up, Premier Kenny, but I just wanted, do you mind, Councillor Wood Roberts, if you want to speak to that, because you made the notice of motion, and I just wondered if this was sort of the question that you had asked, and then to you, Deputy Mayor.
I think my notice of motion was basically because our previous parking bylaw has had like 1 million amendments. It hadn't been updated, I don't think, since like around 2010, maybe. I'm not sure, but there were a lot of amendments just to clean it up. The intent was not to say, do we want to get rid of the parking? That's always an option, and that has to be explored with all the community partners. But it was to basically clean up all of those amendments and have them in one clear document.
I think from here, it shows that we did update the bylaw in 2021, but that was only for the fees, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. Deputy Mayor Kennedy's next, and then Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to get into the discussion about your alternatives to parking meters, but today may not be the day. You note revenues received and the offsetting to the taxpayers. What are the expenses? Maintenance on these old outdated power heads or meter heads, staff time to go down and collect coins and then sort them and bank them. I don't think the $30,000 is an accurate reflection of the net costs. Net costs or net revenues to the system. And how many, you note that, how many meters are we talking about here? Like I don't know if it's 50 or 75.
He's got it in.
Oh, is it? My mistake then.
And 40 something.
Oh, my mistake. I did.
That's okay.
I had it highlighted and I didn't even need to see my highlight. So my apologies. So anyways, yeah, I just would like to see a net impact.
That's a very good point. And we're not making any decision today, but it was really good to have that conversation. We did receive a lot of complaints this summer because we decided to hire somebody to relieve Robert of all the time it takes to man all those meters and says, yeah, 44 spaces and whatnot, and count the coins and go to the bank. It is very, very time consuming. So we hired somebody for the season to do parking enforcement. So more parking tickets were issued this summer than ever before. But I think all this information is really important to have. And I totally agree with you, is that it is just about revenue. It's about expense. And then it's also about the benefit. And I mean, I was on the BIA when we did Streetscape back in 2012, 13, and the BIA was very much in support of paid parking. They did not want people taking those prime spaces. And the municipality has the town lot. They have the lot that sits right here now at the municipal office. They have a lot at the library, the one across the street from the library, and Rotary Beach. I mean, I can't say how many spaces there are that are free. I've never added them all up, but there's hundreds. So, but then again, do we want to upset tourists and people coming to town, or do we just let it happen? We'd still need parking enforcement always, because you've got parking in front of someone's driveway. We've got handicap spaces, people without a sticker. I would never propose that we take it away from the medical center, but that would be foolish. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, to you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Robert. That's, you've done a nice analysis in terms of what's going on in the other communities. And the one that kind of interested me was you talked about Blue Mountain, where they allow us 2 hours. And to me, that would be the simplest form. And that if, what you don't want is the staff from the businesses taking up all the parking spots on the street. And you want to encourage people to shop downtown. Well, if there's a 2-hour limit and people are ticketed after that point, like, we just do the signage, to me, you're getting into a system that's a lot simpler or less administratively onerous. But you're still maintaining, with the bylaw officer doing the tickets or some type of system where you're identifying vehicles that are there more than 2 hours. You've still got a system of enforcement or ensuring that the integrity or the idea of short-term parking on the street is maintained. So for myself, I very much like that alternative as being the simplest and maintaining the whole concept of supporting downtown business, but also maintaining customer access to the businesses. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Smith, did I miss you? Did you have your hand up?
I did, but
sorry.
But no problem. I do think this is worthy of more careful review. Obviously, the BIA would have very important input as to whether or not there's paid parking. But as a result of looking at this, I think there's some housekeeping things that council should be addressing also. We did kind of picked on a single item where in 2021 we increased the fine for expired parking meters from $7 to $12 if you make voluntary payment within a week. But interestingly enough, we didn't address a number of other items. So now you get fined $12 as minimum charge, if you like, for having an expired meter. But if you park on a bridge or if you park someplace that's not an actual parking space and there's a whole bunch of other offenses, the fine's only $7. So if you're not going to put money in a parking meter, the best thing to do is go and park on a bridge or park in something that's not a designated parking space. It'll only cost you $7. I don't know why people have expired parking meters. Like, they just don't have any sense of value. But that falls on us because we jumped in and we tackled one issue, which was, oh yeah, that's $7 for parking meter offense is ridiculously low. It's multiples of that several times over in the bigger cities. But we left a whole bunch of things unattended, and the things I mentioned and others should in fact have a larger fine than an expired parking meter. And so this does need to come back to council with more appropriate fines for those more serious transgressions. expired parking meters. And I don't know if that's something you wanted to see us tackle, next month as part of a council meeting, or if you want to leave it as a direction to a new council. But I think we've opened ourselves up here to an issue that we need to address.
So I'm thinking that myself, that not necessarily for us to tackle it next month, but that we should be bringing all these questions forward of the things that should be addressed. So paid parking in the downtown is one of them. You could have 2-hour free limits, no meters, but it's 2-hour free. And after that, then there has to be a fine. And then you need, so there's a lot to work out. I just referenced the boat races and people parked along the shoulder of the road. Like, we need no parking signs there or you'll be towed. I mean, that is just not safe. Event organizers for large things in the park, even farmers market, they need to deal with, if they're expecting that many people, to find, to explain to their people attending the event where to park. That is not safe to have parking on the shoulder of that road along Head Lake. So there's a lot of things. So I think we should be bringing them up and making note of them, like the parking on bridges and that, and also where areas should be better signed, and the decision of paid parking. You probably still have a BIA meeting coming up, so they should be made aware that it is going to be a discussion at council. Is there anything else that we can give direction while staff could still be, besides coming to council meetings, staff could be working behind the scenes on all of this? To note, we often do get criticized because there's other towns of a similar size, not very far from here, that do have free parking. But I like the idea of limiting it. That's something that I would be making a suggestion to a future council, is that it still should be in the core area limited, which means signage for that. There's a cost to taking down all the meters if that's the direction that the future council wants to go, all that stuff. So anything else we can give direction to Robert to be getting information for? Councillor Smith again.
Well, I want to emphasize the importance of going back at this schedule of fines and making it more logical. Frankly, the expired parking meter ought to be, the least fine. And even if we go to a 2-hour time limit, if you stay beyond the 2 hours, the fine for that ought to be considerably less than the fine for parking in an area that parking is not permitted at all, or parking on a bridge, or there's a whole list of them here. I won't read them all out, but it's when you look at that list there in the appendix, you say to yourself, wow, we had a big miss when we just raised the one fine from 7 to 12.
Yeah. Now, those other ones rarely happen, and the expired parking meters seem to happen every day. So that was sort of the priority, but that's a good point. The whole bylaw should be reviewed. So is there any other further direction that we want to give? And are we okay with not bringing this back to our last meeting in October and letting a future council tackle this? Okay, I see nods. So that's sort of the direction. And I think doing comparables to Blue Mountain and Niagara Falls are probably not, they're much busier areas. I'd like to see more Bankoff, Bear, Bracebridge. Yeah. It's pretty easy to find out if there's paid parking in the downtown or not. And then, all the rest has to be in there. Okay. So a motion to receive. Councillor Clark and Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole received the parking enforcement alternatives report for information. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. I'm just going to check in with council. We only have finance and administration, of which we've got some letters. Do we need a 15-minute break, or do you want to just keep working through and we'll adjourn? Mallory.
I'd like a break, please.
There we go. So we've been requested a break. We will take a 15-minute recess and we'll reconvene at 10:35, 10:50. Yes.
Just want to order here if Councillor Clark maybe it just wouldn't come back after the break and then
Well,
move that one up, just to make it easier for him.
He might have a notice of motion. It will be quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll be quick. Okay, so 15-minute recess. Okay. Barbara, can you hear me? Yeah, we're just at check summary. If there's anything you wanted to point out there.
No, typical August, total disbursements were just over 1,489,000. And so we paid our vendors just over 1,255,000, and the balance is payroll.
And if I read that correctly, we wrote 2 checks in 1 month.
Yes.
That's pretty
Very
good.
rare occasion.
That's awesome. Okay, mover and a seconder. Councillor Wood Roberts, Councillor Donaldson. Yep. And be it resolved that the committee of the whole acknowledges receipt of the August 2022 check summary. All in favor? It's canceled or carried. Tax applications.
Yes, so we have a few Section 357 write-offs due to demolition of buildings, and the total municipal portion of the write-off is $1,251.
Okay, so mover and seconder for that, Councillor Clark and Councillor Smith. Be resolved that the committee of the whole recommends that council authorize tax adjustments for applications made under Section 357 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended as follows, and the totals are there. All in favor? So that's carried. Barbara, before we, I mean, you're going to stay on screen before we say goodbye. The tax sales took place August 31st. We have a report on that at our next council meeting.
Yeah, it was very successful, actually. We ended up with just one property. Out of the original 5, 4 were settled prior to the actual tax sale, and the one property was sold. Yeah, so it was very successful, and we did hold it via YouTube. So there is a recording there if anybody wishes to review that.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. Thanks for that quick update. Okay, so Councillor Clark is leaving the room. So now we'll go into administration. And Mallory, I don't know if you want to, the letter is there. We also received an email that was sent to us. So I don't know if you want to respond to any of this.
Yeah, so this is a letter response from Virginia McLean, and it's regarding the license of occupation agreement on Wonderland Road. So I've just kind of given a summary of the file in the report. You know, when council originally approved it, and the staff report that accompanied it, and then some of the back and forth that's kind of been happening. The original letter of opinion, our lawyer responded to it, and then also provided a response to the most recent one. The license itself has been a contentious one. There are a few options for council. The resolution says to receive, which is an option, just to receive this letter. There's obviously, which Jeff will be able to speak to, there's options to terminate the agreement. It would trigger a kind of a 6-month notice if that was the direction council wanted to go, and council would need to decide the reason that they're terminating, because in our agreement, it does stipulate that a reason's needed. Another option, if council wanted to approach it, would be for a letter to be written to the Jacks from council to kind of clarify what it means, just to ensure that everyone's on the same page for the fact that other people use the area, because it's still obviously a road allowance that others can use. But there's a few options for how to deal with it. In terms of why council made decisions or why previous councils made decisions, councillors individually can comment as to why they voted on something, but the council's decision as a body is a public record. So, and these were discussed in the public eye. So that's just something I wanted to point out for council, is that you as an individual don't have to explain why all of council did something, obviously. So, but any questions? Jeff's here as well. Happy to answer them.
Okay. I feel like this keeps coming back. I feel like we made a decision. I'm not sure why. Sometimes we make decisions and people aren't happy with the decision, so they keep asking the same questions. But this is the decision of this council. I'll look to the floor to see if there's anyone to comment or what. Right now, the resolution, as Mallory pointed out, is to receive. But if I would just ask Jeff, when in the license of occupation with the Jacks, they will have received the information previously as to what they're allowed to do there and what they're not allowed to do there. And so I don't know if they need to be reminded of that.
Yes, the license of occupation does specify what the use is and what the permitted encroachments. It does outline that the public use of the road allowance does continue to remain. So if this is being impeded, it's something we can send them a letter just advising them to adhere to the agreement.
Is it any desire of council to send them a reminder letter? I don't know that we have of that, or we just received this letter from Ms. McLean. Councillor Smith?
Well, I'd suggest that we not just send them another letter, but I'd like us to give notice that under the provision agreement that we're not going to renew this. This is a public land. It ought to be available to all members of the public, and we've authorized a private facility to be installed there. That was a decision we made, but we ensured that the agreement had a clause in it that allowed us to give them notice and cancel it. To me, it doesn't make sense to have a piece of public property authorized for use, sole use by someone else, impeding and disadvantaging the public at large. I'm not even going to ask, but we've spent thousands of dollars on legal fees seeking opinions each time we get a letter from our own lawyer. And so it makes no sense from an economic point of view. It makes no sense from a fairness point of view. And, I don't know who the Jacks are, but we're just giving them special status that's to my mind, inappropriate. And so, I'd like us, as Mallory has pointed out, we have a number of options available to us. But my own view would be that we should terminate this agreement so that come the summer of 2023, there is no private dock on this public land. Thank you.
Okay, Mallory had her hand up before I looked to other councillors.
I actually had my hand up because I misunderstood where Councillor Smith was going. He said not renew, so I was just going to caution that I believe it's a 5-year term right now, but if you plan to terminate, then obviously that's different. So we can continue.
Terminate was my intention, yes, using that clause that's in the agreement. Thank you.
So we can do one of two things, or we can do nothing and receive the letter from Ms. McLean. We can direct staff to send the Jacks a letter to remind them of the entitlements and compliance of a license of occupation, what they can and cannot do, and just a reminder and for encroachment or impeding other people having access to that. Or we can terminate the agreement as to Councillor Smith's suggestion. So I will look to other counselors to see if there's any support to terminate the agreement. And I don't see any at this point. So do we want to send the Jacks a reminder of what the license of occupation entails? Or do we just leave it because they already have that? And we do have a bylaw officer. If someone is, would that be the method of enforcement? If someone has a license of occupation and for whatever reason they're going beyond their encroachment of what their chairs or a deck box weren't supposed to be on the land portion, is it bylaw that would look after that, Mallory? We're looking to Jeff? Yes, to Jeff.
Yeah, I believe so. So we do have an encroachment bylaw. If the licensees were not abiding by their agreement and actually putting other encroachments on the road allowance that were not permitted, yes, bylaw could enforce that.
Okay. So there is a method for that. Councillor Smith?
So you're proposing to add to our expense of maintaining a special privilege for the Jacks. We've not only incurred all these legal fees, now we're going to have our bylaw enforcement officer that is already overwhelmed with,
That wasn't what I was proposing, that there is a mechanism if someone wanted to complain if somebody was encroaching, there's a mechanism. I don't see the benefit of sending the Jacks a reminder. Myself, that is what, if I'm stating my opinion, I would just be receiving this letter from Ms. McLean. But I'm looking to staff have advised us of the choices that we can make. So I was just bringing up the choices, that there is a mechanism. So do we just receive the letter? Does anyone want to move that, or there's anything further? So Deputy Mayor Kennedy and his seconder, Councillor Donaldson. Be resolved that the Committee of the Whole acknowledges receipt of the letter from M. Virginia McLean dated August 15th, 2022, which details her client's concerns with bylaw 2021-44 being a license to use part of the original road allowance between concessions 7 and 8 in front of lot 7 in the geographic township of Dysart known as Wonderland Road. All in favor? Okay, carried. So that's it. We can bring Councillor Clark back in the room. And we just have one last thing, which is a notice from our a delegation of authority from the Integrity Commissioner, which we already also received at the county. Okay, so Mallory, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'll just quickly speak to it. So as council knows, Harold Elson is the Integrity Commissioner for all of Haliburton County and its local municipalities. He's asking, which is kind of him, because legislatively he could just delegate authority, but he's advising council that he wishes to move into retirement and he'd like to delegate his authority for the remainder of the term. So as council knows, we're in the process of going through the process to hire a new Integrity Commissioner. So this delegation would only last until December 31st of this year. And just for council's information, I also put in details about the blackout period because we're currently going through an election. So as soon as nomination day hits August 19th until October 24th, it freezes, Integrity Commissioner investigations, because obviously those could be leveraged during an election period unfairly. So that's just for council's information. If we did need to use an Integrity Commissioner between October 24th and December 31st, it would be through the delegation. Any questions about that?
Madam Mayor, Mallory, Air Bureaus is a pretty big law firm. Is Mr. Elston going to provide you with contact names or department names, someone that will be a point of contact with that firm?
Absolutely. So he's given a name in his letter. Yeah. So we would have one individual lawyer who we would reach out to. John Mascarin is his name. I'm not hearing anything. Is your mic on, Mayor Roberts?
No, it wasn't. I had a little
Okay,
tickle cough.
I
So
thought you were being really quiet and it was starting to worry me.
that's
There.
not like me. No, sorry about that. I have been struggling with a little tickle in my throat, so I turned it off to clear my throat. Okay, so just to, I said we dealt with this at the county. So mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Wood Roberts and seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that the committee of the whole recommends that council acknowledges the notice of retirement from Integrity Commissioner Harold Elston and further recommends that council accept Harold Elston's proposal to delegate his authority until December 31st, 2022 as per section 223.3 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to the law firm of Aird and Bearless LLP. All in favor? Okay, so that's carried. Could we send perhaps a thank you letter? Or maybe I will craft something with you, Mallory, if because he's been with us for just obviously shy of 4 years, right? Okay. Any notice of motion? Seeing none, I think this is a record for us. This is great. I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Councillor Wood Roberts and Councillor Donaldson. Be resolved that the committee of the whole adjourn its meeting held on September 13th, 2022 at 11:05 a.m. All in favor? Okay, so carried. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Now I'll turn my mic off.